The story takes place in Italy during the 1950s. There's a young woman named Bianca who is having a good time in the garden with her boyfriend, Ciccio. Bianca's sister, Maria, keeps telling her it's time to go home, but Bianca and Ciccio agree to meet up later. After Bianca and Maria leave, Maria tries to make Bianca see sense because Ciccio is married and has a son. Meanwhile, Ciccio's wife, Lucia, takes their son cigar and brings him home to be looked after by his grandmother, Linda. Ciccio's sister, Linda, tells him to end his relationship with Bianca and come back to the family, but Ciccio doesn't take her seriously. At home, his mother also tries to convince him, but he says he dreams of leaving their small, gloomy town. Bianca and Maria go back to their father's olive orchard, where their father employs everyone in their town. Their father, Cuma, notices a young worker who he thinks isn't working hard enough. He takes her to the barn and makes her work extra, even though she clearly doesn't want to. Maria, who is the farmer's daughter, can hear what's happening from behind a wall. In the evening, Ciccio goes to a local tavern and overhears a wealthy businessman named Don Luigi trying to force local farmers to sell him olives for very little money. This makes Ciccio angry, and he starts arguing with Don Luigi. He tells the farmers he'll buy their olives at a fair price. The other men in the tavern support Ciccio, and Don Luigi gets mad and complains to the influential Cuma Scatino, saying that Ciccio is ruining his business. Cuma decides he needs to talk to Ciccio, even though he knows it won't be easy because Ciccio is very stubborn. Ciccio comes home only the next morning and tells his father, mother, and wife about his efforts to get fair prices for olives for the farmers. But Lucia, his wife, doesn't care about that. She's more interested in where Ciccio disappeared to all night. Ciccio doesn't even bother making excuses. He gets up from the table and leaves for another date with his mistress, Scylla. Meanwhile, Bianca and Scylla listen to romantic music under a tree and dream of leaving their Pua village for Paris as soon as possible. Vinci, a friend of Ciccio's, advises him to end his relationship with Bianca because if her abusive father finds out, it won't end well. Ciccio just smiles and ignores Bianca's older brother, who looks at him suspiciously. In the evening, Cuma invites Ciccio to talk at the farmer's house. He pretends not to know about Ciccio's relationship with Bianca. Cuma starts the conversation friendly, mentioning that he knew Ciccio's family for a long time. Ciccio's grandfather was Cuma's best friend and the godfather of his children. Then Cuma brings up Don Luigi. Ciccio says the businessman is trying to buy their olives cheap, and he and the other farmers want a fair price. Cuma respects Ciccio's courage, and they part ways. That same night, two men stop Don Luigi's car, drag him out, and beat him severely. When Don Luigi regains consciousness, he goes straight to the police. As darkness falls, Ciccio sneaks into Bianca's bedroom unnoticed and takes her to the closet where they passionately engage in their affair. Ciccio confidently declares that one day they'll be able to be together. Bianca admits she spent the night with her lover. It turns out Ciccio fell asleep in the barn, and Maria barely managed to wake him up and warn him before the owner arrived. Ciccio meets Lucia in the church, where she complains that Rocco, their son, ran away from home last night because he couldn't find his father anywhere. Ciccio says he loves his wife, but they have different views on life. What's forbidden for her is normal for him. Ciccio meets Bianca again, who believes her father knows about their affair. The man claims that he will reveal the truth to Cuma within 3 days, allowing them to leave this place and stay with his brother Antonio for a while. Coso, however, follows the lovers and informs his father about their forbidden relationship, which angers the farmers. Cuma calls Maria to him and asks about her sister's whereabouts, to which she replies that she went to visit a flower cell. Soon after, Bianca appears, and upon seeing her father's anger, she shouts that one of her daughters is a liar and the other is bad. In a shocking turn of events, Bianca then undresses and invites her father to admire her young body, as she and her sister have witnessed Cuma pleasing young girls many times at night. Ciccio gazes at his wife and son for a long time, seemingly bidding them farewell. The next morning, he goes to confess his affair with his daughter De Campa. The farmer invites his guest for a walk, but suddenly strikes him hard on the back with a shovel and then eliminates him with a knife. Lucia screams in horror at the sight of her husband's lifeless body, and Ciccio's mother faints. Bianca immediately realizes that her father is responsible and screams in grief, knowing that nothing can be changed. Ciccio's twin brother learns of his brother's murder from his boss, who warns his fiancée that he will have to leave for a few days for the funeral. He packs his belongings, including a photo of himself and Ciccio together. Meanwhile, the police arrest several men in town suspecting their involvement in Ciccio's murder. Antonio arrives in town where Linda pleads with her brother to take her away from this gloomy place as soon as possible. Antonio tries to support his loved ones and reminisces about his inseparable bond with his brother during their childhood. The day of the funeral arrives, and despite Kuma's protests, Bianca attends. As the deceased's relatives carry the coffin to the cemetery, Bianca weeps and watches from the sidelines. Immediately after the funeral, Antonio goes to the police station where an officer informs him that they have no leads on CIO's murder. Yet the townspeople are unhappy that the cops arrested about 30 people who might have had motives for killing. CIO Vinca tells Antonio that Chicho had many mistresses in the town, so many men were angry with him at the same time. Chicho really loved only Bianca, and he planned to move away with her. When Antonio returned home, he overheard his father telling Linda that Chicho had made many mistakes in his life and had paid a high price for them. When Lindy ran outside, their father told Antonio that Chicho had tried to confront Kuma and his employees, which couldn't have ended well. The father asked Antonio to come home, but Antonio said he was leaving tonight. Before he left, Antonio went to Xiao's house. Koso saw him from a distance and locked Bianca in, just in case. Koso told Antonio that the Perdiso family wasn't welcome there because they smelled bad. Antonio replied that the townspeople knew the truth about his brother's murder. Suddenly, Comp appeared and said no one would dare to get close to Bianca now. Antonio said he wasn't afraid and left. He said goodbye to his loved ones and took the bus, remembering happy moments with his brother. A few weeks later, a man waited for Compa in the barn and killed him in cold blood. Then, he caught up with Kima on the street and killed him too, throwing their shirts next to Lucia's house. The officer wanted to arrest Lucia for the murders, but her father-in-law stopped him. Maria found the lifeless bodies of her father and brother and screamed in horror. Many townspeople turned their backs on Bianca and Maria. The shopkeeper refused to sell them food, so Bianca had to steal bread. They weren't welcome in church, and no one wanted to work in their Olive Garden. Bianca asked rich Don Luigi for help, and he agreed if she met his needs. Luigi began harassing her, so she stabbed him and ran away. Antonio became more mysterious every day because of his mistake. A coworker got seriously injured, and Bianca saw Chichio's image everywhere. She remembered how he saved her when she was bitten by a snake, but Antonio's fiancée was happy because her father would help them buy an apartment. However, Antonio didn't care. He wrote a letter to Bianca, but she didn't open it. He also wrote a letter to his fiancée, who cried when she read it. Soon after, Antonio returned to his family's hometown and hugged his elderly mother happily. He went to the Scudino family home. Maria meets Antonio and invites him to drink tea, saying his sister will be there soon. Antonio picks up a photo of a young girl, and Maria explains it's their deceased mother. Antonio leaves without a word and finds his father. He tells him that Kuma's dead wife is the girl in the photo. His father admits Maria is his daughter. Long ago, he and Kuma were best friends, but when Bianca was born, Kuma became angry and abusive. Maria's mother stayed at the Perdiso house, starting their relationship. Antonio's father confesses he never had the courage to tell Maria he was her father. Bianca finally opens Antonio's letter where he expresses his desire to tell her something important in person. Antonio tells his mother the truth and then goes to meet Bianca. Bianca is surprised to see Antonio looks like her deceased lover, Chichio. Antonio declares he wants to marry her right away, and she imagines her wedding with Chichio. If you've watched this far, thank you for being a great viewer. Please subscribe and comment on what movie retelling you'd like to see next.